First of all, what we'll talk about is, do we know what the difference between Greco and freestyle is? Yeah. Okay. So what can't we do in Greco? Well, we can't attack the legs. All right. We can't. So if we're in here, Coleman can't take a shot. All right. Boom. He can't do that. All right. If they're locked up in an upper body situation, Carter can't step and trip Coleman. All right. You can't trip him there. All right, and then lastly, if Carter's get into a reverse gut situation, all right, Carter's trying to lift, Coleman can't even hook with his leg there to stop the lift. All right, but freestyle, we can pretty much do everything. All right, it's just our scoring is different than folk style. So real quick, I'm not going to preach. You guys are here to learn freestyle and Greco, but the reason that I think it helps you in folk style is you learn to wrestle better in contact. All right, we learn how to use underhooks, we learn how to use Russian ties, we get into cross chest position. All right, so it makes you better there. Another thing that I think is key with freestyle is you learn how to finish your shots quickly. In folk style, you might take a shot, hold on to the leg, and you just get a stalemate. In freestyle, you're going to get punished from that. We learn how to use our hips a little bit better in the Olympic styles, how our hips work for throws, how our hips work for defense. All right, and lastly, we learn to throw. And when you have a reputation as a thrower, all right, people are scared of you. All right, even if, when they hear that you've wrestled Greco, freestyle, they just naturally, this guy might throw me. And just having that reputation is a big advantage. So now I'm just going to talk about key differences between, and I already mentioned it earlier, key differences between folk style and freestyle. Big deal is that control is not required to score. Okay, so you guys get into a front headlock position. All right, so if Carter's in here or Coleman's in here and he hits a head pinch, boom, he comes in, boom. Right now he's scored nothing in folk style, right? But in freestyle or Greco, because he didn't use his legs, all right, he's scored 2 points there. All right. One thing I will tell you again, they do these clinics at the beginning of every tournament. They usually do one for Greco and they do one for freestyle. Today we're going to kind of combine it. All right. I'm going to assume that you guys are pretty smart and realize that when we do something that involves touching the legs, that's just for freestyle. So our first difference is control is not required. All right. The other big difference is we can lock our hands on the mat around the torso. So when Carter's down in a folk style position, Coleman could never do this. All right, this is pretty much the only thing that we do in freestyle and Greco. All right, there's other things, but this is our lock. Coleman will just try to run Carter, boom, and that's a score in freestyle and Greco. So another difference is if you noticed Carter laid flat, right? When you get taken down, you don't have to try to get out. What you want to do is not get turned. And if the top man is not making progress for a turn, there's no set time limit, but if the top man is not making progress on a turn, usually 7 to 15 seconds, the ref blows the whistle and we start back up in neutral. So obviously in these styles, we want to be good in neutral. I'm not going to have them show this, but there's no count anymore for exposure points. All you have to do is just turn them. Expose their back past 90 degrees, we get the points. Here's a big deal, and they talk about this in folk style, and it might come someday, but if you step out of bounds, all right, you lose a point, sometimes 2 points. So if Coleman and Carter are close to the edge, all right, and Carter shoots and Coleman steps out there, that's at least 1 point. We'll talk about the difference between when it's 1 and 2. So that's called a step out point. Some people call it a push out point, but you're really not supposed to push. You're rewarded for taking chances and not penalized as much. They have such things as slip throws. All right, if Carter's in here and he tries a headlock, boom, and he goes straight to his belly. All right, that was kind of acting there because he missed the head completely. But they would probably blow the whistle and say no points for Coleman. That's a slip throw. All right, and then, you know, this is a kind of a silly difference, but you have to cover your hip, the guy's hip for a takedown. So you guys are all familiar with Merkles, and you probably heard this before. A Merkle is a takedown in folk style, which I think is stupid in folk style, because most of the time against a good wrestler, as soon as this leg comes out anyway, you lose the guy. But in order to get the takedown in freestyle, Coleman's got to come all the way out behind. Got to cover the hip. All right? And then we already talked earlier, we'll do it one more time since we're filming this, the 3 points for a takedown. All right? The 3 points of the body. So right now, Carter either has to have an elbow, a knee, or his head in order to get the takedown. But those are what I think are like, you know, our 8 key differences between folk style and freestyle. Now we'll just go over the points, all right? So again, what we'll do first is there's no 3-point holds anymore, all right? We just have 1s, 2s, 4s, and 5s, all right? So we'll talk about the ways to score 1 first, all right? So we're in here, and these 2 guys are in a cross chest position, all right? And we're getting close to the edge here, and then Coleman kind of like hip toss Carter or whizzer him to go out. Boom, right there. All right, Coleman's gonna get 1 there. That didn't look like Carter wasn't trying to stay in. Coleman did a slick little maneuver. Do that again. All right, he's in, he's got a whizzer. Carter's trying to drive him out. Coleman hips in, that'll be 1. All right, where we're in a situation where they're both in cross chest. All right, maybe Coleman's winning by 3. All right, and Carter's just kind of driving, and Coleman doesn't try to stay in. That's going to be a step out for Carter, and that's also going to be fleeing the hold for Coleman because he made no effort to stay in. All right, because he's afraid that if he pushes back, you know, Carter might launch him. All right, so that's 2 ways to score 1 point. Again, I am going to cover all these. It might get a little boring, but we're going to talk about it. Have you guys ever heard the term passivity? All right, so passivity, being passive, not being aggressive, that's freestyle and Greco terminology for stalling. All right, so if 2 guys, we'll talk about it in Greco first, all right? If they're wrestling and it seems like Coleman's trying all the action and Carter's not doing anything, all right, after, you know, a certain time, a referee's going to hit Carter for passivity. Coleman will get a point, and then Carter has to start in the position that we call parterre position. All right, so that happens in freestyle. I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, I guess in that situation, when Coleman knows the rules probably better than I do. All right, when he's been deemed passive, Coleman gets a choice of putting him on the mat or staying up in neutral. Most of the time we would put him on the mat. Now in freestyle, the passivity is a little bit different. All right, what happens is when the guys have been wrestling and nobody scores, all right, there's other times it can happen, but the main time, nobody scores. Most of you guys will have 2-minute periods, some of you will have 3. Then the ref will pick a guy to be passive, that's passive, and then that person will be on what's called the activity clock. All right, so if Carter has not been doing anything and I call him passive, then he has 30 seconds to score or Coleman gets a point. All right, if Coleman scores while they're wrestling and Carter doesn't score a point, Coleman still gets the point. All right, that's kind of a new rule in the last year or so. Now there's some other situations that are cautions. If Carter is wrestling Greco, get in here, and he takes a shot, okay? He has a brain fart, and he takes a shot. Boom, I'm going to blow a whistle, tell him no, no, no. If he does it again, that's a caution and 1 in Greco. If you offensively grab the legs, that's 1. Now, if you do it defensively, all right, that would be 2 points. And just so we know, 3 cautions is a disqualification, 2 leg fouls, okay? 2 defensive leg fouls is a disqualification. Again, you guys have heard that, right? You can't touch the legs to stop a guy from doing a move. But again, when you're learning, make the ref call the caution, all right? I'd rather us get cautioned than get thrown sometimes. All right, but eventually we'll figure out how to counter things. Let me see what else we. So an illegal hold is going to be 1 point in freestyle. We have this thing. It doesn't happen at the local level, but challenges. If I challenge, my coach challenges the referee, and the referee, they look at the video and they're like, no, the referee was actually right, then I lose a point for that. So that's about all our 1 point moves. I think kind of the only other time would be Coleman get down on the mat. Yeah, good point. All right, so this is kind of interesting. First of all, let's show the fleeing the hold. So if Coleman's trying his gut wrench here, and Carter's here, and he's like jumping forward, and he's not letting Coleman, and not out of bounds, but you're just not trying to stop it by turning into him, and he's trying to jump out of that. That could be called fleeing the hold. Last 1 point would be if you get a reversal. Okay, so again, most of the time a guy is not going to try a reversal, right? That'd be 1 point. But there might be a situation where Coleman hits a gut wrench, all right? And then after the gut wrench, Carter comes up and hits a switch. Boom, comes around. That's going to be 1 point, okay? 1 point reversal. But here's a more interesting situation that a lot of people don't realize is a reversal. So Coleman get in here and hit Carter with a gator roll. So Coleman's in here and he hits a gator roll. Boom, 2 points, okay? That gator roll counts as Coleman's takedown. Okay, that exposure counts as the takedown. When Carter comes up, he hits a sucker drag. Comes behind. That's not Carter's takedown. All right, that's just his 1 point reversal. You guys understand that? And you'll get to learn that. So now we'll talk about our 2 point holds. All right, standard 2 point holds is just like in folk style, takedown with control. All right, so if we're wrestling Greco, all right, and Carter hits a duck, Coleman hits a duck, and Carter's like, I'm not getting thrown, he goes right to the mat. 2 points. All right, if Carter hits a sweep single, all right, we're in freestyle, boom, hits a sweep single, comes up, 2 points. We talked about the roll. So our standard takedown without any exposure, without any back exposure, all right, would be 2 points. Now we'll talk about a couple other 2 point scenarios. In this, I don't know if you guys can come up with one off the top of your head. They have what's called a correct hold. I think it's kind of, I'm not a big fan of the rule, but if a guy tries to hit a move, all right, and he doesn't completely succeed with it, but it looks like good technique, then we can get 2 points for that. You want to try like a lift where you try to, so go with it like a reverse cut. Can you go like a reverse cut? So Carter comes here, Coleman comes here, and he's going to try to show him how it would be for the 4. So to get 4 points, Coleman picks it up, he throws Carter, boom. That's a low amplitude throw that we expose the back. That would be 4 points. All right. But if it's a situation where Coleman's lifting Carter, boom. All right. He's trying to do the same move, and Carter keeps his belly parallel to the mat the whole time. Boom. I don't even think that would get it done. All right. That's probably not going to give me a correct hold. All right. But there are certain situations where we, if Coleman picked that up, took it over his body. All right, we could do like an arm throw situation where you land on your knees. All right, so if Coleman's in here, and we'll show it the correct way first. All right, where we score the 4. He hits this, boom, arm throw, 4 points. All right, if Carter counters this and goes to his knees, all right, just go to your knees, boom, right there, no points. Because Carter landing on his knees, the referees consider that good defense. All right. Now we're in a situation, I know this gets a little complicated, you'll understand it as we go, where Carter kind of lands on his belly, lands on, boom, like that. Doesn't really get exposure, doesn't land on his elbow. We'd probably call a correct throw there for 2 points. Coach, you agree with that? All right. So other 2 point situations would be just a standard turn. Go ahead with an ankle lace here. So this is a hold, and this is what we'll go over tonight, because after I do this long speech, we're going to go over some holds that are different in freestyle and Greco from what you would do in folk style. Because just about everything you do in folk style, you can do in freestyle and Greco. All right? It's just there are some additions that we can do. So Coleman's in this ankle lace situation. All right? He just rolls Carter quickly. And folk style, this is nothing, right? It wasn't held on his back long enough. Right there, Coleman did 2 exposures. That would be 2 sets of 2 points. All right, even in a situation, can you come up where you're like sitting up on it? All right, so if Coleman's in here, Carter has an ankle lace, all right, boom, and Coleman's like turning into it, turning it up like this, and he goes like this, doesn't really expose his back. That's still 2 because Carter rotated. He rotated him there. All right, so here's an interesting situation. So if we counter a hold, okay, if I try to throw Coleman, and because normally it's a feet to back situation, right? So you hit a lateral drop, right? Boom. So somebody hits a lateral drop and score for 4. Boom, right there. That's going to be 4 points for Coleman. All right, but because that's feet to back, if Coleman tries to lateral drop, Carter feels it coming, and he counters, Coleman goes back right there. Carter doesn't get 4 points for that. Okay, that wasn't his move. All right, but he countered it and kept Coleman there on his back. That's going to be a 2-point hold. So a counter to the back, and if you guys see me holding my hands, they do their hands different. All right, like 3, they do 2, 3, like that. All right. So another situation would be if try an ankle lace. All right, where we counter a guy and we keep him in danger on the mat. All right, so Coleman tries an ankle lace, and he's rolling across his back here, and Carter's like, stop him. Yeah, grabs his arm, holds him there long enough that the ref's like, Coleman's not just trying to finish his move, Carter stopped. 2 points. If he held him like that, we could possibly get the pin. All right, we could possibly get the pin. So we already kind of talked about if you are on your back, all right, if Coleman's on his back, close to the edge. All right, and Carter has him in a half, and Coleman bridges to get it. I mean, he's fighting to get it off the mat. All right, that's going to be a caution in 2. So that's 2. Anytime that you leave the mat while you're on your back, that's going to be 2 points. All right, that kind of makes sense. Question? What do you mean? Oh, and then in that situation, we restart parterre. There are some other like silly stuff, like if you don't line up in parterre correctly, you could get 2 points in Greco. We want. What do you mean? Okay. I don't know what you're saying. Okay, all right. So another situation, it's the same kind of thing, where Carter takes a shot. All right, and this is why I love freestyle, because in folk style, he can shoot and just hang on to that leg for the last 20 seconds of a match. And, you know, at the end of a match, you're winning by 1. You get that leg. If you have a death grip, you're probably good, right? All right? In freestyle, man, if you're going to take that shot, you better finish it quickly. All right? Because what Coleman's going to do here is he has this little trunk whizzer. All right? Boom, he gets exposure right there. If Carter hangs on and this idiot comes back up, Coleman will just keep, and every time he does this, there's 2 points. All right? I remember Coach Ed one time being unkind to his son when his son kept holding onto the leg, but he learned his lesson. All right, let me just, again, we talked about defensive leg fouls, illegal holds. Yeah, I mean, another thing, this is the coolest rule that they made last year. If this has nothing to do with the points, but if you're on your back and you scream or cry, they just call you penalty. All right, they're just like, that's not getting you off your back in freestyle and Greco. They have to stop the match for like legal purposes, but You know, you're not getting off your back to win the Coleman. So now we'll talk about, we're almost done because there's not many ways to score 4 and 5. All right, so we have 4-point moves or anything offensively feet to back. All right, so if we're in here and we hit a blast double. All right, so we're in, boom, blast double, 4 points. All right, if Coleman hits a double, all right, and then hit a double, hit a high crotch. Boom, he hits a high crotch. Carter's gonna turn and he picks Coleman up. He picks him and he walks him and he walks him and he walks him. All right, we could get 4 there in a feet to back situation. All right, I will say the most complicated scoring scenario in freestyle is a situation where a guy hits a double and then the other guy tries to chest block. All right, that's always like a big debate. What we mean here is Carter hits a double and Coleman hits a double and Carter goes to chest block right there. I'm giving Coleman 4 points there. All right, Coleman initiated that action. All right, Carter, in order for him to score, he needs to stop Coleman, change his direction. All right, sometimes they'll give a 4-2. I won't give that. So if we do it now, let's change his direction, Carter. All right, Coleman shoots a boom. All right, and this is what Kyle Dake all the time does. He just stops the guy, he picks him up. I wouldn't even like let's do it like pick him up and hold him there. All right. So Carter takes the shot. Boom. Coleman chest locks him. Boom. Picks him up. Walks him. Then he throws him. All right. We're gonna give Coleman 4 on that. Carter gets nothing. All right. But my general rule, I don't know what my official referees would call, but I reward the shooter. The shooter's taking risk. So unless it's clear to me that the defender has stopped the guy and turned it into his move, I'm rewarding the shooter. Another type of 4-point situation. All right. So most we talk about feet to back. Carter, Coleman go down. Carter, go ahead and do your Greco lift. Or Carter will hit this Greco lift here, where Coleman doesn't actually touch his back. So Carter starts a gut, kicks over, picks Coleman up, boom, starts walking, and he pops his hip. Coleman never landed on his back, right? He came all the way to his chest, but we picked him up, we rotated him through the air, we get 4 points for that. All right, if Carter gets big amplitude on that and Coleman comes to his back, we get 5. All right, so I mean, anytime, like here's a simple 4-point hold. All right, if Carter drops into fireman's carry, all right, don't throw it right away. All right, the rule is it's not if Carter goes feet to back, it's what the defensive thing is done. So Coleman's on his feet, Carter dumps this, 4 points. 4 points right there. All right, so lastly, we'll just talk about our 5-point holds. So our 5-point holds are big amplitude.
You got quad pod. If you got wrench from a quad pod?
That's 4.
Yeah.
Right?
Like if you got him from the quad pod,
That's
before,
5.
you gotta take
No, it's
that.
not.
Oh, yeah, okay, so we can talk about that. We'll talk, so another situation, that is a good point, Coach. So if Carter has gotten in this situation, Coleman goes behind. Does he have his 2 points yet? No, right? He doesn't have his 2 points, all right? So if he hits this gut wrench right now, all right, if he guts and pop, boom, that's gonna be 4 points for us, all right? Because Carter's on his feet, all right? He never, and so sometimes what might happen is, let's do it again. At the end of the day, it doesn't make a huge difference, but Carter touches his knee, boom, his knee, so then that's 2, and then a 2-point turn. And that could make the difference if the match is tied at the end of the match. All right, that's what we'll talk about last. But now we'll just show our 5-point throw. And you know, sometimes what will happen is there's 3 officials, guys. There's the referee, the judge that will sit one place, and then there will be the match chairman. And so what will happen sometimes is they don't all score things the same way. All right, so it's kind of hopefully they do, but it might be a best 2 out of 3. Usually the mat chairman has the final call. But sometimes the guys are like, oh, I think that's a 5-point throw, and others are like, that wasn't high enough for me, that's just 4. All right, so Carter likes his 5-point throws, we'll have him show. All right, he likes to do this Greco step around throw. Boom, boom, boom. He's in.
Dang!
That's gonna get us 5. All right, that's gonna get us 5. Again, when you learn to throw correctly,
Put that on the
it really doesn't hurt when you throw correctly. Like Coleman, that didn't hurt you, right? All right, go ahead one more time. All right, he's in, he steps in deep. All right, and he gets, Coach Santangelo, we're calling that 5, right? All right, so last thing I'm going to talk about before we get into some skills. And again, I appreciate all your guys' attention, and you know, you don't have to know it all tonight. I can send you my USA Wrestling has the full rule book. I have like a Cliff Notes version. I'm more than willing to share. A lot of times, you know, rules get called differently. I remember one year we're at Northeast Regions, and they're calling slip throws when you go to a knee. But then we get out to Kids Nationals, and they're saying for it to be a slip, you got to go to your chest. But here's our final difference. And you guys have probably seen this if you've watched the Olympics or any freestyle and Greco matches. A match can end in a tie, okay? But a tie, while you're wrestling, you know who's actually winning. So if a match ends in a tie, the person that wins is the person with the highest point value of points. So if Carter and Coleman end in a 4-4 match, okay? And Carter has a 4-point throw, all right? And Coleman has 2 2-point takedowns. Who wins? Carter wins with that big move, all right? Because they want to see big moves, all right? So that's highest point value, all right? So we call it highest, and then we call least, all right? So least would be who has the least cautions. All right, so if Carter turned Coleman twice in gut wrenches, all right, so he has 4 points. And Coleman has 1 gut wrench, all right, but he also has 2 points because Carter leg fell, all right. Who wins? So they both have 2 2-point moves, right? And it's tie, but Coleman wins because he doesn't have any cautions. All right, and Carter has a caution. All right, so then the situation that you see most often, all right, is the last person to score. All right, with the same values. So if these guys each have 3 takedowns, all right, 6 to 6, right? The guy and nobody has any cautions. It's both 3 2-point moves. The guy who got that last takedown is the winner. All right? The guy that gets the last takedown is the winner. Before we move on to Ezra, do you have a question? Okay, so I didn't really cover that. Yeah, so just like in every style, a pin is the best thing. All right? A pin ends the match. All right? So we have some other things. In Greco, Ezra, I'm actually glad that you asked that question. In Greco, the match ends with an 8-point differential. All right, if I build an 8-point lead on my opponent, the match is over. So in folk style, that's 15, right? In freestyle, it's 10. All right, so with our pins, it's basically the same thing as folk style, but it's quicker. You don't have to hold them for a 2 count. It might be a kid's level, a 2 count, but it's basically simultaneously your blades are on the mat for, quick amount of time. Like Carter could actually run a gut wrench and keep Coleman on his back. So he runs a gut wrench here, boom, and just kind of back arches him right here. And holds Coleman there. We'll get the pin. We'll get the pin there. Does anybody else, and again, this is your time, because I know when I used to go to tournaments, I had questions and intimidated to ask a question because all the rest of the kids in the tournament just want the tournament to start, and I didn't want 50 kids to think I'm an idiot. But if we have, and fortunately my man Ezra always likes to ask questions. Does anybody else have any questions about how a scoring scenario might go? All right, JJ, nothing? All right, and I guess the cool thing these days, back when I wrestled, there were certain moves that you could only do one time in a row. I think everything now you can do it as many times as you want, right? I'm not gonna, there's 2 periods, all right? There's 2 periods. They give a break, you go to your corner, that kind of a thing. When we wrestle in Maryland, they're not gonna be picky about your singlets, but hopefully we'll have, how many guys did we have go to Northeast Regions last year? How many do you think, Taylor? I mean, I want a number. I don't want just that you went. But we probably had like 30 guys in our club that went to Northeast Regions. You've got to have a red singlet and a blue singlet, all right? The guy that's on the top of the bracket, he's red. The guy on the bottom is blue. So don't stress about that now. In the Maryland tournaments, they'll either have ankle bands, but they like it if you have the red and blue. Are we good?
Yes.
So here's what we're gonna do, and we have some girls here, which is awesome.